This is the historical true crime podcast, One Nation Under Crime, and we are your hosts. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
We have made it to the infamous episode that I keep teasing.
Infamous.
And I will say.
Nobody likes to tease, Kayla.
I know. Well, you know.
Maybe some
is what it
do.
is. And I will say, for those out there who are wondering, yes, I will give credit where credit is due. Leah did guess correctly off mic as to what this week's topic is going to be. Leah, would you like to tell the people what we're discussing this week?
The Hatfields and McCoys.
We are. And this.
But can I make a confession?
Oh gosh, you don't know anything about it, do you? You just know the feud. You don't know anything about it. Well, I'll ask you more in a minute. So
wait, let me tell you my confession.
More. Oh gosh.
Let me tell you my confession.
Okay.
My husband may have asked me if that was the topic, and I may have asked you.
That's hilarious.
So let's give the credit to my lobster. Because he is a smart man.
I should have known.
But when he said it, I was like, oh, yeah, she did say something about that.
I should have known. Well, we'll hop right into it because this is a bear of one to pull apart and explain. So our sources.
But give a gold star.
I'll give a gold star to your husband.
Thank you.
I give you a participation star.
I get a medal, trophy.
So our sources for this week, I actually cited them this week. We have Legends of America, which is always a really good website, and the website where you can find things that are interesting, allthingsinteresting.com.
Good website.
So, we're going to hop into our births for 1863 real quick. February 12th, we have Edith Julia Griswold.
Did she go on a family vacation?
She didn't.
Okay.
But she's an American patent attorney who was the only woman patent expert. However, I found this hilarious. Her expert work was confined to patents relating to articles used or worn by women.
Well, I mean, she had to know about them because she was a woman.
Yep. So, that was all she could do.
Because she couldn't know anything else because she was, I mean, her feeble little woman brain couldn't hold any other information.
So simple-minded. I'm surprised she even became an attorney, honestly.
I mean, bless her heart. How does she hold all that information in there and keep all of her, stylish
She can't have a little petite head and be so cute if her brain is
right?
So she was in Aquarius. March 25th, we have Simon Flexner. He was a physician, scientist, administrator, and professor of experimental pathology at the University of Pennsylvania. He served as the first director of the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research and was a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation. And big surprise, he was also a friend and advisor to John D. Rockefeller Jr.
Shocker.
I know. His most important achievements are studies in polio and the development of treatments for meningitis.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. The bacteria species Shigella flexneri was actually named in recognition of Flexner. In addition, Flexner was the first to describe Flexner Wintersteiner rosettes, which is a characteristic finding in retinoblastoma, which is a type of cancer. So very
interesting. That was a long string of big words.
I know. So he was a Gemini. Let's see. Actually, no, he wasn't a Gemini. He would have been, let me think. because May 25th would have been a Gemini. He probably would have been a Pisces, actually. I think I put in May 25th, not March 25th. So he would have been a Pisces, not Gemini. Gemini is June. October 28th, Thomas Joseph Tucker, nicknamed Foghorn Tom.
That is so fun.
Interesting nickname. Was an American first baseman in Major League Baseball who played for 6 different teams between 1887 and 1899. He was listed at 5 feet 11 inches tall, weighed 165 pounds. He threw right-handed, but he was a switch hitter. Do you know what a switch hitter is?
I do. They can bat left-handed or right-handed. They can switch it up.
Know who for the Braves is a switch hitter?
No.
Ozzie Albies.
There you go.
He actually, it's very interesting because obviously I watch a lot of Braves baseball, but it depends on if the pitcher is right or left-handed as to whether he bats right or left-handed. He decides.
Yes, I did know that.
So it's very interesting.
Well, I have a friend from my hometown who he didn't make it to the major leagues, but he made it to the minor leagues. Yes, as a pitcher. Yes. He was in Canada. I can't remember the team, but he is over a foot taller than me. I mean, I'm only 5'2", but he's over a foot taller than me.
That's true.
Like when we would go on youth trips and we would do youth stuff, and there would be like a group picture, and there would be everybody, and then he would
jump up,
stand out above everybody else.
Of course,
one of the coolest, kindest, sweetest guys you would ever know, but quite the baller. Claim to fame from my hometown.
Well, old Foghorn Tom was a Scorpio. December 5th, we have Patillo Higgins. He was an American businessman and self-taught geologist. He earned... Yes.
Patillo?
Patillo.
Well, that is fun.
It's a fun name. He earned the nickname the Prophet of Spindletop for his endeavors in the Texas oil business. He was a Sagittarius.
What's a spindletop?
Couldn't tell you. I'm just here. December 7th. This is a name that everyone will know. Richard Warren Sears. He was an American manager, businessman, and the founder of Sears, Roebuck and Company with his partner,
I know that,
Alva Curtis Roebuck. He was also a Sagittarius. Then the most important day of the entire year, other than June 26th, obviously, which is this is coming out.
September 8th.
It's June 26th, the day that this comes out. And then also December 11th, Annie Jump Cannon was born. Well, she was an American astronomer whose cataloging work was instrumental in the development of contemporary stellar classification. She is credited with the creation of the Harvard classification scheme, which was the first serious attempt to organize and classify stars based on their temperatures and types. She was nearly deaf through her career after 1893 due to a bout of scarlet fever. She was also a Sagittarius.
So Spindletop is an oil field.
That's kind of what when I said the Texas oil industry, I kind of thought that maybe that could have been what it was.
It's the name of an oil field in the southern portion of Beaumont, Texas. Like a specific oil field. There you go. I had to know. I Googled it.
Interesting. Well,
GTS.
I will say I was asked today if I have discussed something very specific on the podcast yet. I have not discussed the specific thing on the podcast yet. I will say it has ties to Texas and it has ties to maybe the oil industry. Kind of slightly bounced off from it but I've been given permission to discuss it. So we'll see when I decide to bring that up.
Dun,
I'm going to leave everyone in suspense.
Again, nobody likes a tease.
So then I put notable deaths in 1863 equals Civil War. All
Lots
of the major deaths that were occurring, like Stonewall Jackson died in this year. All of the major deaths that had occurred in this year were all like in direct relation to the Civil War. And so I skipped them. What I did.
So I skipped them.
Yep.
Too many to name.
So, as I discussed at the top of this episode, this is something that I've been teasing for quite a while. In this episode, we are going to discuss the Hatfields and the McCoys. For some, that might not seem very notable, but the Hatfield
there's lots
McCoy,
of songs.
There's a lot, and we'll go into how much there is. The Hatfield-McCoy feud is not only the most well-known feud in American history between two families, it is also the bloodiest feud between two families. The entire feud began in 1863 and then continued on for almost 30 years.
Mercy.
There are several players in the story, so I'm going to try to keep them as straight as I can, but it seems super fitting that there is one way that these families originally crossed paths. Can you guess what that major thing that we might have discussed 100 times over in the past 5 episodes could be that has occurred at this time that could make these two families cross paths?
Does it involve Yankees and
Doodles? No, but yes.
Rebels?
Yes. So the Civil War is what caused these two families to cross paths. And we're going to go into that. Like I said, there are a lot of names. I tried to keep this as simple as I could and as concise as I could. It's not easy.
I'm going to tell you guys, we were going to record sometime today, and I sent a text to Kayla, and I was like, hey, when do you want to record? And she's like, it's going to be later tonight because this is a lot to untangle. I am still working. And guys, she's been working on this.
It's a lot to untangle because there are a lot of good sites that really do put it like chronologically, but there's so many different things that people kind of like mismatch and put in different places, and so many things that occur that go on that it's kind of like I don't want to miss anything, but I also don't want to like put too many small details that it's hard to track. So it's like, it's not the easiest to go through, but we are going to start with William Anderson Hatfield, also known as Devil Ants. And we'll get into that in a moment.
He was ants born as in like the insect?
No, ANSE. So Anderson. So Ans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He was born on September 9th of 1839 in Logan, Virginia, to parents Nancy and Ephraim. I'll go ahead and note that today he would have been he would have been born in West Virginia. At this time, it's not West Virginia yet. Gotcha. So technically it is literally Western Virginia. So that's why I'm saying it's Western Virginia. At this time, it is simply just Virginia. The nickname Devil Ans has a mysterious origin story. Some say he earned the nickname from his later foe, Randolph McCoy. Others say it could have been from his bravery on the battlefield. One plausible reason would be because his cousin, Anderson Hatfield, which William's middle name is Anderson Hatfield was called Preacher Ans. And the most sinister of all origins is that his own mother gave him the nickname Devil Ans.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot.
I'm not a mom. I'm an aunt, but
that's a lot.
I know a lot of kids And I can understand
Depends
why
on the
you
kid.
might. I mean,
Possibly.
I'm just saying, I have been a teacher as well.
I could
And
see it.
I'm just saying.
Well, for simplicity's sake, we're going to simply refer to him in most things as Hatfield. I also refer to him as Old Man Hatfield, the OG Hatfield, if you may. So there's a lot of times that I'll kind of refer back to him. He went on to marry Lavisa Shoffin.
Oh, my.
Who went by Levacy. Which is
because that's better.
In 1861.
How about just Lev?
Yeah, Levy? Right. The couple.
Visa. That's a fun name. I'm just saying.
Not quite. It's not a great one.
It's better than what she was given.
I think Levacy is cute.
Too much.
Well, the couple married in 1861 and went on to have 13 children.
Ooh, that's more than you have fingers.
Too many? Yes.
Yes.
Several of the children were involved in the infamous feud, but there are a few who made it out unscathed. For instance, some of them went on to be doctors. Some of them completely got out altogether. Others were not. Yeah, others were not so lucky.
Bye. This your fault. Bye.
Yeah. It's important to note that the side of Virginia that Hatfield lived is also known as the Virginia side of Tug Fork, and that will come back. So it's the Tug Valley, Tug Valley that they're kind of in, but where they're at specifically is called Tug Fork. So that's also going to come back later. But just to let you know, kind of, even though it's Logan, kind of they end up in this area called Tug Fork. The Hatfields were well known in the area and had quite a bit of political pull at the time. By this time, the family was running a very successful timber operation and became really wealthy. So they were really considered like upper class at this time.
Everybody wanted to be their friend.
Yes. And like I said, they were pretty connected politically as well. There isn't much else we really know about Hatfield's early life, so we're just going to kind of jump in right at the Civil War. Hatfield enlisted in the Confederate Army and was commissioned as a first lieutenant of cavalry in the Virginia state line in 1862. This was a group that was created to protect the territory along the Kentucky-Virginia state line, but it disbanded just a year later. Then Hatfield went on to enlist as a private in the 45th Battalion Virginia Infantry. Mainly, his unit spent their time patrolling the border and engaging in guerrilla warfare against soldiers. This type of fighting seemed to suit Hatfield because he and his uncle decided to form their own guerrilla fighting unit called the Logan Wildcats. For those who are wondering, no, guerrilla warfare does not include large apes fighting, even though that would make the Civil War way more interesting.
They imported them.
Well, camels were supposed to be in the Civil War, would have made it more interesting. So I'm just making sure people don't think that we imported apes, and that's not what this is.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
I'm aware. I know I'm right.
I said that too many times.
You did. You did. But guerrilla warfare is actually groups that operate just outside of the scope of the military that use similar military tactics to ambush or raid those that are on the other side. But it's very much not. They're right outside the rules. They're like fringe little groups that kind of do things that maybe aren't, really directed by the military, but kind of are. They're like, it'd be great if X, Y, and Z happened. And the Logan Wildcats would be like, that's great. We're going to go do it.
Funny how that happened.
Weird. So this type of fighting was actually proposed by Sun Tzu in the 6th century in the book, The Art of War. So a lot of people kind of know like that book infamously, but that's where the guerrilla tactics came from.
Sun Tzu.
So on to the McCoy side. We've got Randolph McCoy. He was born on October 30th of 1825 in the Tug River Valley of Kentucky. He also would go by Old Randall and Randall. He was the fourth of 13 children. Ooh, it gets better. To Daniel and Margaret Taylor McCoy. So for reference, McCoy was on the Kentucky side of Tug Fork and Hatfield was on the Virginia side of Tug Fork. So they're right across from each other, essentially, when you think about it. In fact, Hatfield actually employed a few of the McCoy family members in his timber business over the years. We also don't have much on McCoy's early life either, other than by the time of the start of the feud, the McCoys were considered lower to middle class, even though they did own 300 acres of land and it was a livestock farm at this time. This livestock farm will come back. McCoy married Sarah Sally McCoy. Her name was Sarah. She went by Sally. As Leah would say, better than leprosy, I suppose.
Yeah, that's better, but what her last name was already McCoy?
Maybe.
First cousins?
Maybe. So the two married in 1849. And
wait,
yes,
do we know?
Yes, she was his first cousin.
Oh my gosh.
I know. The couple would then go on to have, I know 13 has been the golden number thus far in this episode, but the couple would go on to have 17, yes, 17 children together.
No, that is way too many.
I just put, and first cousins. Yikes.
Did they all have 10 fingers and 10 toes?
They seemed to be. I saw some photos of the McCoy children, and we're going to discuss one later on. She was very pretty. So I'm going to say maybe things were fine. I don't know. I guess if you are one of 13 and then your first cousin may also be one of 13, maybe there's a chance that maybe you're not technically first cousins. Maybe somebody else's genes got floated in there at some point. Mailman who may. I'm not sure. I'm just saying.
I'm pretty sure you're still first cousins, and that is gross. I mean, we're in Alabama, and we know that's wrong.
True. Just like the Hatfields, several of the McCoy children are involved in the feud as well. For simplicity's sake, we're going to refer to Old Randall as McCoy or the real McCoy. Or, we're just going to kind of go on from there. I figured you would appreciate the real McCoy.
That was so bad. And you know I love it because it was so bad.
Being from Kentucky, McCoy was also a staunch Confederate. And we also did discuss in previous episodes at this time that Kentucky was kind of split down the middle. Like Kentucky really wanted to be Switzerland. They did not want to interfere with the Civil War at all. They kind of just wanted to be their own little place. And they did not choose a side until they were invaded later on. So
until they had to, until they were forced.
So McCoy was from 1863 to 1865. He was actually a POW or a prisoner of war while serving in the 45th Virginia Infantry Battalion, which is the same battalion that Hatfield was serving in at this time as well. McCoy was also a Logan Wildcat, just like Hatfield. So their paths are crossing continuously. They're right across Tug Fork from each other, which Tug Fork at this time, the fork is the fork of a river. So it was the Tug River and it forked off. And so where they're at was called Tug Fork because of that. So they're quite literally right across. It forks off. I could say something else, but this is supposed to be a clean podcast.
Sorry.
So if you could fork off, that'd be great. Anyways. So
you love me.
This is an episode of One Nation Under Crime brought to you after dark. Quite literally at this moment. But
yes, it is.
In the fall of 1863, multiple Union guerrilla attacks were made by the Kentucky Home Guard on the West Virginia side of the Tug River. In these attacks, a friend, so this is where we got to focus, keep together the timeline. In these attacks, a friend of Hatfield's was killed. And it was known that the attacks were instigated by a man named William Francis Jr. or Bill France. These people had some interesting nicknames.
I mean, you got to keep it fun.
As a result, the Logan Wildcats surrounded Bill France's home in Pike County, Kentucky, and Hatfield killed him.
Well, I mean, wow, retaliation.
Exactly. Well, McCoy actually had a younger brother who was the outlier of the family, who enlisted as a member of the Union Army.
Oh.
His name was Asa Harmon McCoy. And Asa happened to be a friend and neighbor to Bill France, who was just murdered by Hatfield. Because Bill France murdered Hatfield's friend. So that's kind of where we are at this kind of point.
I see where we're going.
Yes. There are various stories that are basically all hearsay as to how exactly the two families became entangled. But we do know that Asa Harmon McCoy was the straw that broke the camel's back. His joining the Union Army made him a traitor in the eyes of many, including his own family. And when Asa spoke out against Bill France being murdered by Hatfield, a target was immediately put on his back.
Yeah.
Asa actually ended up being discharged from the Union Army on December 24th of 1864 after breaking his leg. So he wasn't able to serve anymore, so they kind of discharged him, sent him home. Well,
couldn't use him anymore.
Once Asa returned home, Jim Vance, who was actually Hatfield's uncle, I will say there are some sources that say Jim Vance was Hatfield's uncle. They'll also say he was his cousin. I have looked more into it and have found it's probably more of an uncle situation than cousin. So I will refer to him as his uncle.
We know they were related for sure.
Yes. So Jim Vance is Hatfield's uncle. And he sent a message to Asa that the Logan Wildcats would be paying him a visit soon.
Oh, like watch your back, Jack.
Yep. Asa heard gunshots as he was drawing water from his well and ran and hid at a nearby cave. But
I mean, just a convenient cave nearby.
Just convenient. But the Wildcats followed him there and shot him on January 7th of 1865. So we're in Appalachia. So yes, at this time, like Appalachia, there's an abundance of places to hide. So yes, that's where he ran off and there was a cave nearby and he hid in there, but
and especially if you know the area. Yeah,
exactly. Hatfield was a suspect at first, but it was later confirmed that Hatfield was actually sick at home at the time of the murder. It was then widely believed that his uncle, Jim Vance, had committed the murder. But there were never any charges filed in Asa's murder, but it was known that the Hatfields were to blame at the end of the day. This could have been the end of the story. There were grudges held between the two families, and McCoy was bitter towards Hatfield for the murder of his brother. There was a slight understanding that Asa was on the Union side, right? So they weren't real happy. Like McCoy was kind of mad. Asa was his brother, even though he was a turncoat and went to the Union side. But there was kind of this understanding of okay, he did fight on the Union side. It's kind of yeah, he's my brother, but he also kind of turned his back on the family.
Yeah.
Know? So there was kind of this understanding. So this could have been the perfect point to let sleeping dogs lie and just move. That was me brushing my hands and move on.
There was no visual, but she did. Yeah. She she was wiping her hands clean.
Wiping my hands clean. For 13 years after Asa's death, everything was fairly quiet between the Hatfields and McCoys until one of the Hatfields. Actually, I'll say this. how much do you know about? A lot of people don't know about the Civil War stuff. A lot of people don't know about Asa Harmon McCoy being killed. A lot of people don't know those parts. But how much do you actually know of this feud at all? Do you know what the
zip?
So you don't know what the main thing is that people say the feud started over.
Zero about it. I just know that it's sung about. I know that it's a feud.
Okay.
But that's all I know.
So everything was fairly quiet between the Hatfields and the McCoys for 13 years until one of the Hatfields were taken to court by the real McCoy, Mr. McCoy, Big Man McCoy, over the theft of a hog.
Oh.
So this is kind of the story that everybody knows of. This is how the feud started.
Over bacon.
Bacon. But keep in mind, the McCoys ran a 300-acre livestock farm. So this wasn't just a hog. Like, you were stealing from their family.
Their livelihood.
So.
Bacon. I'd prosecute over bacon.
I can't say that I wouldn't. So.
I'm just saying.
Floyd Hatfield was a cousin of Devil Ann's, or, Mr. Hatfield, everything. And he had been accused of stealing one of McCoy's pigs. Now, remember how I said that the Hatfields were kind of known politically? So when the trial made it to court, the justice of the peace who oversaw the case was Anderson Hatfield, a.k.a. Preacher Ann's, who was Devil Ann's cousin.
Well, that's convenient.
And everything came down to the witness testimony of a man named Bill Staton. Unfortunately for the Hatfields, no. Backwards. Unfortunately for the McCoys, Staton testified in Hatfield's favor. The charges ended up getting dropped, and the McCoys were furious. They were so irritated. But why would Bill Staton be cause for such outrage if he was just an impartial witness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably because Staton was actually related to both the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Oh, what luck.
So to the McCoys, Staton just took a side. And he took the side of the Hatfields. He was a
blood traitor. Blood traitor.
2 years later, Staton was violently murdered in a dispute with Sam and Paris McCoy, who were actually nephews of O.G. McCoy.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and that murder occurred on June 18th of 1880, which is... Wait, no, today's... Okay, yesterday was the 18th. I was like, we're recording on that. No, not today. The McCoys were able to argue that the shooting was in self-defense, and they were acquitted of the murder. Yet again, this could have been where the story ended. This could have been it. A stolen pig, a wronged McCoy, a murdered Staton, and then acquitted McCoys. Like, this could have been the end. Like, tit for tat. Like we've titted, we've tatted, we're done. Right? Like, we're both sides done.
Sorry, never heard it put quite that way.
But you see,
you're so eloquent.
I know. Unlike Taylor Swift, these families were not in their Midnight's era. They were in their Fearless era. Yes. And guess what? No story is complete without one thing.
What?
It's a love story, baby.
Oh, my.
Just a couple of months after the murder, Hatfield's son, Johnson, also called Johns, met McCoy's daughter, Rosanna.
Oh, no. Rosanna.
Yep. At an election event. The two instantly hit it off and disappeared for hours with each other
Love
over the
at
coming
first
months.
sight.
And if people will recall,
love is a many splendid thing.
Oh my gosh. If many will recall, it is Taylor Swift's Fearless album that does hold the title song. It's a love story.
I liked my song better.
Romeo, take me somewhere we can be alone. Anyways,
I am not a Swiftie. I'm sorry.
We'll correct that. Anyways, continuing on.
No, you cannot. It is not able to be done. The daughter of my heart rode with me to Atlanta, and she was like, Aunt Leah, I know we're listening to your playlist, and I noticed that we haven't heard any Taylor Swift. And I said, no, baby, you will not hear any Taylor Swift on my playlist. And she went, ugh.
We'll fix this. It's fine. Anyways, continuing.
I know. I'm sorry.
Because
not a Swiftie.
You will be. Because her father adamantly disapproved, Rosanna fled to West Virginia to be with Johns. She was soon followed by a McCoy posse who arrived at the Hatfield home and arrested.
Gotta love a posse.
I love a posse. And arrested. I've got to move forward. I've got to press on. I can't. Sorry. He was soon. Anyways, Johns was arrested on an outstanding Kentucky bootlegging warrant. And it's important to note here that both families were in the moonshine business as well at this time. So, like, this is no surprise.
I have some of those in my history, too.
I do, too. Mine are actually in Alabama.
Well, we're related.
That's true.
Probably the same ones.
Could be. Who knows? So anyways, they arrested him on those charges, and that's just kind of, how they were going to try and pull the two lovers apart. Also a Taylor Swift album name. But anyways, Hatfield then gathered his own crew to cut off the McCoys on their way back and rescue his son, Johns. The couple was forced apart, but Rosanna was pregnant.
Rosanna Dana. Oh, no.
And I put, unlike the ending of T. Swift's song, the families refused to allow the couples to marry. This might not have been a terrible move, though, because it said that Johns was a serial womanizer and was also carrying on several affairs while he was with Rosanna.
Oh, no.
Eventually,
my daddy would have whooped that boy within an inch of his life. I'm just saying.
It gets better. Eventually, Rosanna gave birth to a daughter named Sarah Elizabeth McCoy in the spring of 1881. But what about Johns, right? He had already moved on and married a woman by the name of Nancy McCoy.
Oh, no.
The daughter of murdered Asa Harmon McCoy, and it was Rosanna's cousin.
I mean, adding insult to injury here, my dude.
Well, old man McCoy would not accept the baby into the family.
Oh, no.
Said that Sarah Elizabeth...
What about daughter?
No. Said Sarah Elizabeth was a Hatfield by blood, and he was not having it. So... Yes. So Sally...
That was his baby child.
Didn't matter. So Sally McCoy, the mom, she actually arranged for Rosanna to go live with her sister. So Rosanna's Aunt Betty. She went to Springville, Kentucky and lived with her.
Was she Black Betty? Whoa, no. Black Betty.
No.
Sorry.
So sadly, Sarah Elizabeth died at only 8 months old from measles. It was very, very, very sad. Rosanna was so heartbroken by the loss that many say she never recovered.
I mean, she was turned out by her family. First of all, her man abandoned her and rebounded with her cousin and married her. The rebound. She was sent away from everybody that she knew and loved
with
her daughter, who was not recognized and loved by anybody but her, to an aunt who was away. And then, they didn't have Xanax back then. They needed it.
And Rosanna isn't mentioned too much in the years after the death of her daughter.
Bless her heart.
But she did die just 6 years later at the age of 29 in 1888. It said that she suffered a brief illness, but many think that the heartbreak of her losing her daughter killed her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad. So,
and that is a Southern bless her heart. Like
a
I'm
good
so
one.
sad for her. Yes, that's not like what a dummy. That
Bless
is a
her
bless
heart.
her heart. Yeah. Yes.
So
that's a good bless her heart.
After the death of baby Sarah Elizabeth, another chance meeting at another election event in 1882 sparked another conflict. Some might say bad blood. Another Taylor Swift song reference. 3 of Rosanna's brothers ran into Ellison Hatfield. So this is a good name to remember because Ellison is going to come back in a different way. So Rosanna's brothers ran into Ellison Hatfield. And Ellison was the brother of Devil Ann's, a.k.a. OG Hatfield. A fight broke out and Ellison was stabbed 26 times before being shot in the back, just for good measure.
My goodness. I mean, they weren't playing.
Yes. A group of Hatfields were serving as constables at this election event. And for those who don't know, constables are kind of like peace officers, but they don't have too much power. They're not really like authority figures. They're kind of like glorified security guards. They're just kind of there. They don't have any real power, but they're like crowd control. They're there to make sure everything is like in place and being taken care of. So these group of Hatfields arrested the McCoy brothers and began marching them to nearby Pikeville to stand trial. But before they got there, Devil Ann's and a large group of armed men met the party and took the McCoys to West Virginia. The McCoy brothers were then taken there to await the fate of the mortally wounded Ellison Hatfield. So they had to wait to see what was going to happen to Ellison because Ellison didn't die immediately. He was alive.
He was tough.
Yeah, after being stabbed 26 times and shot once in the back.
I mean, I'd be like, okay,
yeah.
I'm going to go see God.
So
I'm going to go see Jesus.
They waited and they had to see what was going to happen to see if he did die or not, because that would determine what the charges were. Well, in a bout of backwoods justice, when Ellison died, the McCoy
we know all about backwoods justice.
When Ellison died, the McCoy brothers were tied to bushes and they were shot numerous times.
Ooh.
When the bodies were later examined, there were over 50 bullet wounds between the 3 of them. Yeah.
That's a lot.
The authorities soon indicted 20 men, including Devil Ann's Hatfield and his sons, for the death of the McCoy brothers.
Okay, I was going to say, who did the shooting?
The Hatfields.
Okay, gotcha.
An attorney by the name of Perry Klein also steps in at this point, and he tried to have the Hatfields apprehended. Perry Klein also had a bit of an interest in it since he married Asa's widow, Martha. So Asa was the one that started it all with the broken leg.
All right.
Perry Klein married Martha. So he kind of had a little bit of an interest. Oh, also, he had sued Devil Ann's Hatfield over the deed for thousands of acres that Klein believed belonged to him, and Klein lost. So he was also had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder about that too.
He's a little salty.
So Klein had a little bit of pull as an attorney and announced that there were rewards for the capture of those who murdered the McCoy boys. But the Hatfields still eluded being arrested, even with the promise of money to turn him in. In 1886, Jeff McCoy killed a mail carrier by the name of Fred Wolford. There's not a lot known as to why he did. I don't know what was going on. But William Anderson Hatfield Jr., also known as Cap, so he was known as Cap Hatfield.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, Cap was serving as a constable at the time, and Cap was in a Cap and
go see Cap about that.
Yeah, go see Cap. That's yeah. So Cap Hatfield and an associate named Tom Wallace pursued Jeff McCoy to the banks of a nearby river, where they ended up shooting him, and he died. A few months later, Tom Wallace, who went with Cap Hatfield to hunt down Jeff McCoy, Tom Wallace was murdered by the McCoys in retaliation. So it is literally like tit for tat, back and forth. It's like, you do this, I'm going to do this. You do this, I'm going to do this.
What do I say? What do I say about murder?
It's bad.
Murder is bad, guys. Murder is bad.
So
stop it. Stop it right now.
So by 1888, the Hatfields had enough. And they decided they were going to...
I've had enough with this foolishness and all these shenanigans. Stop it right now.
They decided they were going to end the feud.
What's the death count right now?
We're up there. Because I'm not even covering all of the death. There's more. Like, there's way more behind the scenes, too, that's still going on. That are
many shenanigans.
Like, with other branches outside of the McCoy, like the main McCoy Hatfields. So, on New Year's Eve of 1888... Cap Hatfield and Jim Vance, who was Devil Ann's uncle, took a group of Hatfields to old Randall McCoy's house and started shooting at the house in the middle of the night. Keep in mind, the McCoys had 17 children, right? Okay.
I don't like
some
this.
of them are not adults. You are not going to like this at all. They then set the house.
Why are you telling me?
I know. They then set the house on fire.
Oh my gosh.
As the McCoys rushed out into the open, the Hatfields started firing upon them.
Not cool.
2 of the McCoys' children, Calvin and Alifair, were killed.
How old were they?
I didn't see how old they were, but it says children. Like, I'm under the age of 10 is what I could kind of gather. McCoy himself managed to escape and moved the rest of his family to Pikeville. His wife, Sarah Sally, was beaten.
Sarah Sally?
Yeah. Well, she was beaten and her skull was crushed during the attack.
Oh, my.
The event came to later be known as the New Year's Massacre.
Rightly so.
And once he...
That's horrible.
Yeah, once he received the news of the 2 children being murdered, the governor of Kentucky had enough and decided...
The governor stepped in.
The governor stepped in and said, this has got to end.
I mean, that's bad when your family feud requires the governor to step in and say, dude, you need to rein this in.
I might have put it in here, but at different times, the governor of Virginia and the governor of Kentucky threatened to send in the militia to stop the 2 families.
For these 2 families. Oh no, you
families.
haven't said that.
I may have it in there later, but I don't remember. But I'll go ahead and say it now in case I do forget. So the governor of Kentucky sent Special Officer Frank Phillips to protect the McCoys, and a group of about 38 men were also sent out to arrest the nearly 20 Hatfields and put out a special reward that brought in more bounty hunters to go after the Hatfields. They were calling in everybody,
all available people that aren't
your mom and them, everybody. Yeah. They're calling them all in.
Can your daughter shoot? Bring her on. Is her name Annie Oakley? Bring her on.
So Special Officer Phillips and a party of McCoy men began pursuing the Hatfields and managed to corner and kill Jim Vance, who was Devil Ann's uncle. So that really set off the Hatfields. Yeah.
But he was one of the ones that kind of kept it going too. Yes, because he killed somebody else. I mean, I'm just saying.
When Hatfield got word of Jim's death, he organized a raid for a final attack on the McCoys. Special Officer Phillips heard about the Hatfields' preparations for war and rounded up every available man he could on the way to intercept them. On January 19th, the Phillips/McCoy group met the Hatfields on the what is now the West Virginia side of the Tug River. The two groups exchanged gunfire, and the fight later became known as the Battle of Grapevine Creek. But in the end, the McCoys gained the upper hand, and by the end of the day, most of the Hatfields had been either captured or killed in the fight.
Ugh.
The Hatfields who were taken captive were arrested for the deaths of the McCoy children, but that didn't mean the case against them would go smoothly. Legal battles unfolded as a series of courts judged the legal merits of the Hatfield case. So, because of issues of due process and illegal extradition, the United States Supreme Court became involved.
What?
Yes. The Supreme Court ruled 7-2 in favor of Kentucky, holding that even if a fugitive is returned from the asylum state illegally instead of through lawful extradition procedure, no federal law prevents him from being tried. So the Hatfields were trying to get out of it, saying, like, we were brought here illegally, like, so you can't try us. And the Supreme Court was like, no. They did it fine. You can still be tried.
You still did wrong. Therefore, you must answer for what you did.
The Hatfield prisoners were then put on trial in 1889 for the various crimes they had committed during the feud. Mainly the murder of Randall McCoy's sons for killing Ellison Hatfield and the killing of one of his daughters during the New Year's Massacre. Like all these things, like this is what's occurring. In the end,
once you kill children, I mean, murder is bad.
Yeah.
Period.
But like children should never be in your.
Yeah. Children should not be involved at all because they don't know. They don't know. They're kids. They're children. They're innocent.
In the end, 8 Hatfields were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, except for Cotton Top Ellison Mounts.
Cotton Top.
You're going to probably. I have mixed feelings about Cotton Top. Cotton Top was actually the illegitimate son of Ellison Hatfield, who was murdered. So Ellison Hatfield was murdered, and I told you he's going to come back. Well, Cotton Top was his illegitimate son. But Cotton Top was sentenced to death for having killed the McCoy daughter, Alifair.
Mm-hmm.
Cotton Top was described as, and this is directly a quote, he was described as being mentally challenged. And many people in the community felt sorry for him being involved in the case and even accused the Hatfield family and authorities for using him as a scapegoat, even though Cotton Top confessed to killing Alifair McCoy. Cotton Top actually went on to try and retract his confession, stating that he was innocent and he only confessed because he expected leniency if he did confess. That's kind of what he was told.
Oh, so we don't know for sure if he did it or not.
No, but his retraction was denied. Although public executions were against the law in Kentucky, thousands of spectators gathered to witness the hanging. And by this time, Cotton Top was not old. Like he was teens, maybe late teens.
You know my feelings.
Like close to 20-ish, maybe.
Public executions.
Yeah.
I do not understand the draw. Why do you want to see somebody die? I do not understand wanting to watch somebody perish. I do not understand the draw. I don't get it. I don't like watching it in movies when it's not even real. I don't get it.
Thousands of spectators gathered to witness his hanging on February 18th of 1890.
I don't get it. Weirdos.
The hanging site is the current location of a classroom building of the present-day University of Pikeville in Kentucky.
No.
With his last words, Cotton Top claimed, quote, "The Hatfields made me do it."
Ugh.
No one had been sent to the gallows in Pike County for 40 years. And after Cotton Top was hanged, no one was ever sent again.
That was wrong. If he was mentally unstable, if he had mental deficiencies, that was wrong.
And a lot of people, that's what a lot of people said.
Wrong.
So, of those sent to prison, Valentine or Val Hatfield.
I do like the name Valentine. I do like that.
He was the elder brother of Devil Anse. He was one of the 8 that were convicted, and he actually died in prison of unknown causes. He had petitioned his brothers to assist in his emancipation from jail, but none came for fear of being captured and brought to trial as well. He was buried in the prison cemetery, and actually the prison cemetery has since been paved over.
What?
Doc D. Mahone was the...
Stop.
No, we have more. Doc D. Mahone, son-in-law of Val, and a brother of another guy who we're going to bring up. He was one of the 8 Hatfields convicted as well, and he served 14 years in prison before returning home to live with his son, Melvin. This is the other guy. He was the brother of Doc D. Mahone. Pliant Mahone, son-in-law of Val, served 14 years in prison before returning home to rejoin his ex-wife, who had remarried, but she left her second husband to live with Pliant again.
Okay.
Yes. Hold on. Fighting between the families. Because I'm not done yet. Hold on. Fighting between the families eased following the hanging of Cotton Top. The trials continued for years until the 1901 trial of Johns, who was sentenced to life imprisonment for his involvement in the New Year's Massacre in the last of the feud trials. So now yes, the cemetery has been paved over, and it did not...
How many people were paved over? How many people are being parked on top of? That is wrong.
Well, there's no telling, because at this time, I mean, paupers' graves are a big thing. So, like, if no one claimed your body, they didn't keep records on how many people were there. Yeah.
That crushes me and makes me so very sad. I mean, I know it's bones. I know that they are not there anymore. I get it. I know that their souls are gone. But that is so very sad.
Yeah. I know. It's awful.
I mean, of course, my childhood home that I grew up in was between two graveyards.
Yeah.
But between, like, the front graveyard and the back graveyard, that's how we described them. That's where I learned to drive, where I learned how to fly kites and learned how to ride bikes, like graveyard. But you didn't step on the graves because that was disrespectful. Like, I have much respect for such things. I had the coolest middle school birthday party. So everybody wanted to come to our middle school birthday parties because we played murderer in the graveyards.
I mean,
because that was awesome.
It's wild. But they eventually...
That makes me so sad.
The prison cemetery was eventually paved over.
That's wrong. That's wrong. That's not cool. That's wrong.
So,
okay, number 2. Who was the prisoner? He went back to his ex-wife, who then was like, okay, so you were just like a bed warmer until like my true love came back from prison.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
What?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Rude.
Wild. So
rude.
With the feud officially over, Randolph McCoy became a ferry operator, and he died in 1914 at the age of 88 from burns suffered in an accidental fire.
Was it accidental, or was there,
They said it was an accidental fire that I don't know, but it was not, and we're about to move on to that, but it was not due to the Hatfields. We do know that.
Are we sure?
Yes. He is buried in the Dials Cemetery in Pikeville, Kentucky. As for Devil Anse Hatfield, he was a long proclaimed skeptic about religion, but was born again for the first time at the age of 73. He went on to found a Church of Christ congregation in West Virginia, and he died of pneumonia on January 6th of 1921.
Whoa.
He died at the age of 81 and was buried in the Hatfield Cemetery alongside West Virginia Route 44 in southern Logan County.
So he wasn't paved over.
No.
That really sticks in my craw.
To say that the legacy of the Hatfields and McCoys has spanned the test of time is honestly putting it lightly. Their feud has influenced countless pop culture references, from music to theater to television and everything in between. The infamous families have permanently made a name for themselves in the history books. The most widely known television depiction of them took place from May 28th to the 30th of 2012. Do you know about this? Because I actually watched it every single night.
No, I didn't.
U.S. television network, the History Channel, aired a 3-part miniseries titled Hatfields and McCoys.
I do vaguely remember that.
Yes, it was huge when it happened. It was a 3-part series. It was like 2 hours per part. It came out for 3 nights in a row. It was massive. So, starring Kevin Costner as William Anderson.
Yes,
Neville
I do remember
Hatfield.
that.
Co-starring Bill Paxton as Old Randall McCoy. Tom Berenger as Jim Vance, and Powers Booth as Judge Valentine Hatfield. The miniseries set the record as the most watched entertainment telecast in the history of advertising supported basic cable. It was so good. And Kevin Costner was so good in it. And so was Bill Paxton. I love both of them. It was great.
Yes.
You can still find it in places. I think like it was on Netflix not long ago, but if you have Discovery Plus, I'm pretty sure you can actually go and watch it. It is very, very, very good. I would highly suggest it. It goes into a lot of different things. It goes into very big detail of things that occurred during that time. And it's a drama. It's not a documentary. So it is like actors.
So it's a
not
story.
It is a mini series. It is an actual like you're watching a movie that's 6 hours long. But there's multiple parts spread out. It's amazing.
Yeah, but it tells the story, but it's not a documentary story. It is
not
like a movie story. Excuse me. Had hiccup there. Sorry.
In 1979, the Hatfields and McCoys united for a special week's taping of the popular game show Family Feud.
That's the year I was born.
In which they played for
I love that game show.
I know. They played for a cash prize and a pig that was kept on stage during the games.
Oh my goodness.
The McCoy family won the week-long series 3 games to 2, while the Hatfield family won more money. The Hatfield family won $11,272. But the decision was made to augment the McCoy family's winnings to $11,273.
Why?
Just to kind of one up them, and they got the pig. In 1999, a large project known as the Hatfield and McCoy Historic Site Restoration took place and was funded by a federal grant program from the Small Business Administration. This project restored many of the infamous locations of the feud, and also a committee of local historians spent months researching reams of information to find out about the factual history of the events surrounding the feud. This research was compiled into an audio CD, the Hatfield-McCoy Feud Driving Tour, which is only available at the Pike County Tourism Visitors Center in Pikeville. The CD is a self-guided driving tour of the restored feud sites and includes maps and pictures as well as the audio CD to listen to as you drive. The driving tour leads visitors to feud-related points of interest, including the grave sites of the feudists, the Hog Trail Cabin, known as Valentine Hatfield's Cabin, Randolph McCoy's home place as well in Hardy, Kentucky, Aunt Betty's house, where Rosanna went to go live, and many more
Black
sites.
Betty Ramadan.
And most of these sites are actually complete with historical markers today as well. If a dinner show is more your speed, you can go to Pigeon Forge in Tennessee and go to the Hatfield and McCoy dinner feud, which touts, quote, become part of the longest running feud in history and help the Hatfields and McCoys try to settle their differences mountain style. Whether you're city folk or country cousins, you'll love the singing and dancing, mighty feats of strength, jaw-dropping stunts, and side-splitting comedy. The chaos doesn't stop with fighting cousins, though. You'll watch diving hillbillies and diving dogs in our swimming hole and get to see a new high-flying contraption, our billycopter. The excitement never ends at our Pigeon Forge show.
That was a really good redneck voice.
I tried. The great... The great-great-grandsons, Bo McCoy and Ron McCoy of the feud patriarch Randolph, organized a joint family reunion of the Hatfield and McCoy families in 2000 that garnered national attention. More than 5,000 people attended. In the 2000s, a 500-mile all-terrain vehicle trail system, the Hatfield and McCoy Trails, was created around the theme of the feud as well. On June 14th of 2003 in Pikeville, Kentucky, the McCoy cousins partnered with Rio Hatfield of Waynesboro, Virginia, to declare an official truce between the families.
Wow.
Rio Hatfield said that he wanted to show that if the two families could reach an accord, others could also. He had said that he wanted to send a broader message to the world that when national, because this happened right after 9/11, that if national security is at risk, Americans put their differences aside and stand united. Quote, we are not saying you don't have to fight, because sometimes you do have to fight, but you don't have to fight forever. It was signed by more than 60 descendants during the fourth Hatfield-McCoy family reunion. The truce was touted as a proclamation of peace, saying, quote, we ask by God's grace and love that we be forever remembered as those that bound together the hearts of two families to form a family of freedom in America. Governor Paul E. Patton of Kentucky and Governor Bob Weiss of West Virginia signed proclamations declaring June 14th, Hatfield and McCoy Reconciliation Day. And that is the story of the Hatfield and McCoy feud.
Well, I'm glad there was reconciliation.
It was much more involved than you thought it was, wasn't it?
Yes. I'm sad that children died.
It was very sad.
I'm sad that a mentally unstable, mentally challenged person was hanged,
I'll say this too,
sentenced.
if you watch the Hatfield and McCoy's show that was on the History Channel, Cotton Top is, I vividly remember this, Cotton Top was very much portrayed as a very sympathetic character and very polarizing that he was killed. So I do think that there is some merit to saying that he did not truly really know what was going on.
He just kind of did what he was told to do. Yeah.
So it's a very, very good miniseries. If anybody wants to go watch it, you can find it some places. You may be able to find it on YouTube now. But it's very good. Kevin Costner, Bill Paxton. It's a very, very good cast. Those are just the top ones on the cast, but like very well known.
Yeah.
They were very, very well known names that were in that. That's actually why it was so I was gonna see if I could find who else was in it, but it was actually like a very well known cast. Let's see.
Once you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that. I think my husband may have watched it.
Yeah, Noel Fisher actually played Cotton Top. Powers Booth was in it. He was Judge Valentine. Jenna Malone was Nancy McCoy. Jenna Malone would go on later to be in Hunger Games. A lot of these people, like, they look super familiar because they've been in a bunch of stuff, but they're people probably wouldn't know them just by their names.
Yeah.
But I mean, the cast is very well known. There's lots of people that you watch it and you're like, I know that person from somewhere.
Yeah, I know that face.
But very, very good. It was. I highly recommend it if anybody would like to go watch it. But that is the case for this week. We greatly appreciate you being with us for this week. We do have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information you're looking for. It's onenationundercrime.com. Please, we are still working towards our 100 reviews by the end of the summer. So please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and go leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate
I know we have one more because David Dixon, he let me know that he left us one. He was my band director.
So exciting. I don't know if I've seen it yet. I'll have to go and look because I don't know. I may have gotten the alert, but I'm not sure. I'll have to go look. So go leave us a 5-star review.
Yes, he needs special recognition because he put up with me in my middle and high school years. So gold star, 2 gold stars to him.
2 gold stars
Bless
all the way around.
His bones.
We greatly appreciate
Schoolia. We were a lot.
And he has been a long-time supporter of the podcast.
He has.
We greatly appreciate it. Yes, they both have. So they were actually the ones that said, they were like, it's actually very good. It's very actually historical for a true crime podcast. So we greatly appreciate them as well. Please go leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'll still give you a sticker. Not with the new logo. It is with the old logo, but you can still get one. We appreciate you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here. Same time.
Different crime.
Next week. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all, and sometimes it's strung out across a few years.
Sometimes it is, unfortunately, and sometimes they'll pave over your grave.
Sometimes, but
unfortunately,
we will see you guys later. See you next time. Goodbye.